What is going on, investors? Back again, another stock analysis. Today, we're going to take a look at, by request, Delta Airlines. A lot of interest in these airline companies because they fell off a cliff. And it's one of these products and services that a lot of us use. If you're in business or if you're just traveling for leisure, you're using these airline stocks a lot. So they just reported earnings, and I put earnings in quotes because there wasn't much earnings to see. And they've made some news here. I'll summarize the press release as well, and then we'll jump finally into the financials and kind of take a look at what's going on here. Now, we're seeing the stock is having a good day today. I'm recording this in the middle of the trading day, so this could bounce around. But this stock did make a low of about $17, but it has been as high as $63. This price to earnings and all this EPS stuff doesn't matter a whole lot as long as the dividend rate. We're sitting at a $16 billion valuation. So there's lots of billionaires out there that could, that pay a lot for airplanes. Well, they could buy their whole airline if they wanted to. And so this is a very financially distressed company, as we'll see in a minute. Now, what's happening is Delta is taking a proactive approach here. They're getting many thousands, it says here, of employees to take early retirement packages. So this is pilots and your stewardess and things like that. Now, this is not going to come for free because they're going to have to take charges on these voluntary retirements. Some of these retirement packages might have already been baked into the financials a little bit, but you'll see here they'll do a $600 million charge that will be actual cash payments, and the rest maybe through some kind of retirement plan that they had worked out already. So this is what's happening here. Now, what I want to do is summarize the press release. They put out a very lengthy press release. Normally, I don't really pay attention to press releases, but Delta Airlines and the cruise ships and a lot of these companies that have been completely shut down are going to trade more on news and the details than they are obviously any kind of business operation. So they raised $15 billion in the quarter at about a 5.5% rate. Obviously, we're seeing companies borrow for a little bit less, but if anybody wants to lend me $15 billion at a 5.5% rate, I would stand up and take that loan as fast as I could. They received $5.4 billion in grants, mainly thanks to the United States taxpayers. They had a Q2 cash burn on average of $43 million per day, not per month, per day during the quarter. They had a June cash burn, so this is kind of showing you how they progressed through burning this cash, down to $27 million a day, so big improvement, at least from a perspective of cash burn, if that's improving. And then finally, they project to be cash burn neutral by the fourth quarter. My guess is this is assuming an uptick in some kind of travel. I think they're projecting maybe a little bit of uptick in travel. Obviously, if you got the holidays and maybe as we progress through the health situation that people are going to be willing to travel a little bit more. So I think that's where they're getting that with there. They had a $3.9 billion adjusted loss for the quarter. That is over $1 billion per month that they are losing. And so that's a problem. As we jump into the financials, let's actually just jump back up to the balance sheet up here. They lead off with that, and they show you that they have this $11 billion in cash. Well, if they're burning through or losing $1 billion adjusted per month, they have less than 12 months of cash on the balance sheet to survive. And I would guess it's probably less than that. This is a company that's going to probably have to rely on the government or medical miracles, essentially, or medical advancement, maybe is a better way to put it, to survive. The longer the things go on where they are losing business and they don't have business, the more this company is going to suffer. Now, let's jump into the most recent quarter. I feel it's actually fitting. I'm going to cue, where's the band? Is the band here? Okay, the band's here. I'm going to cue up some music right now. So here we go into the Delta Airlines comprehensive loss for the quarter. We've got 3 months ended here and 6 months here. We see that passenger revenue fell off by 90%, over 90%. It looks like went from 12.5 billion all the way down to $1.5 billion in operating revenue. We see our expenses here. Notice that salary stayed relatively the same. This is probably because maybe these are union employees or they're just taking care of them. And so they were not able to reduce these. But you see airline fuel, obviously, when you're not flying planes, you don't have to have a lot of fuel. You have the CARES Act grant recognition here. You've got some other restructuring costs here. That's probably not necessarily cash, but you get down to an operating expenses. You see how much this is like a 90% drop in terms of revenue, but they're not able to drop these operating expenses fast enough. And so that leads to a $4.8 billion operating loss for the quarter. You get down to a net loss of over $5.7 billion. This is compared to a company that was spitting out $1.4 billion in the previous period. And for the previous 6 months was spitting out about $2.2 billion. And so if they can get back to that, you annualize that out at about $8 billion. Again, this is a company that's valued at $16 billion. Now, most estimates that I've seen says that the airlines and these stocks that have seen their revenue taken off, it's probably going to be late into 2021 and probably more likely into 2022 until you really see things start to pick up. Now, the stock will probably start reacting sooner than that. I mean, I think we had some positive news on a vaccine today, and so the stock is reacting, but in terms of going long this stock, to me, this is a stock you're betting on medicine. You're betting on probably some more government bailout or loans or grants or whatever you want to call them. For me, as a long-term investor, I like to bet on sales and increasing revenue and increasing market share. I don't like to bet on, if I wanted to play the biotech or the medicine sector, I would just go buy some medical device companies or some biotech companies. If I wanted to play the government sector, there's probably other ways to do that. It's probably buying gold and silver. But so Delta Airlines, to me, if you want to get in here and trade this thing, I think it's great if you want to get in here and trade this, because you've got a fair amount of kind of, this stock bottomed out at 21 just a little while ago, and it's popped up all the way to 36, and now it's back down to 28. And so this stock's moved around a little bit. And so I think you could play that if you want to play really far out. I bet the options aren't cheap far out, because that trade is probably crowded. If this airline manages to survive, then 2 years out, the $16 billion valuation is going to be seem like a really good deal. But when you factor in that they're burning through $1 billion in cash essentially every month, this $11 billion is going to go quick. And so this is a company that's going to need some financial assistance. They're going to need to take on more debt. We didn't even really look at it in terms of liabilities here, but you've got debt here that's matured. You got $5 billion. You've got $19 billion. I mean, this is a company that was levered up a little bit, but now it's really levered up. So we went from 8.8, 8.9 all the way up to 19. And in the short term, we had 2.2, and now we're all the way up to 5.2. So, you add this together, this is $24 billion worth of debt at a blended multiple of 5.5% interest rate. This is a company that's not doing that well financially. And, they're going to need some things to really turn around. Now, is the stock going to jump around, go up 5%, go down 3-4%? Yes, it will. If you can, it's like turbulence in an airplane. If you can stomach that, then by all means, I would consider this a very, very risky especially a long-term bet. From the short term, I think you can maybe play the pops and drops here. But for me, as a long-term buy and hold investor, there's just too much risk here in the airlines. For me, I wouldn't mind to get a little bit more clarity. Maybe this stock trades back up to $30, $40 per share. Honestly, I don't mind buying it there. If there's more clarity, more visibility into their finances, they're not going to have to borrow any more money. Air traffic's coming back. The stock rallies on that news back up to the $40 level. Well, look, it could easily go back up to $50, $60. They might even be more healthy at that point. But this company might need to bankruptcy literally might be a good option for this airline and many others. And so for me as a shareholder, I don't like that outcome. That to me is a really negative outcome as a long-term shareholder. Certainly if I were to buy into this for whatever reason, I'd put a stop loss somewhere in the, I think the $19-$20 range. If this stock breaks that level, you see here where it's like peaked down to about $21-$22 a few times and it's bounced. If it breaks that level, it is going back to the floor, maybe 17, maybe even lower than that. So I would not let this stock in my portfolio drop below. I would call it about $20 because some bad things to happen if it breaks that level. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Not a super long one, but I wanted to get Delta Airlines in that. Thanks for everybody that's given me suggestions and comments. If you have a stock you'd like for me to cover here on the channel, leave me a comment below. We're in earnings season, so get those in. And that about wraps it up for today. Good luck with your investments.